All right, welcome back. Episode 28-ish, I believe, of the Winnipeg Weight Loss Show. We get guests from all over the place. Actually, Adrian Del Monte was my last guest. I know our current guest had a chat with him recently. So on the show today is Nate Feathers, father of five, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Got a great Instagram page, Dads Don't Babysit, and there's some great messages there that we're going to dive into. Also, a CrossFit coach and a 9 to 5er. So I'm curious to know how you balance all this and still be that present father you are for your kids. So welcome to the show, Nate.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Yeah, no, it's crazy. That's for sure. That's pretty much what it is. It's just living in chaos and understanding how to, not even understanding, just okay, we'll catch what we can get and do what we can.
Absolutely. And a lot of our listeners are dads like yourself. We struggle to make time for fitness,
Mm,
and that's the first thing that kind of falls off. And you found a way to kind of make that work. So
yeah,
I'd like to start with maybe sharing a bit of your day to day as a father of
sure.
five,
Yeah.
CrossFit coach, and how you kind of weave in your own personal fitness into that schedule.
Yeah. So I will say that my health journey started me down the fatherhood journey even more so. I mean, and I say that I've been a dad obviously since for a long time, since I was 24, but I don't feel like I was very present and I didn't really pay attention. Everything was kind of like a default factor for me. It was just like, oh, well, they're kids. They're just supposed to be here. And,
Mm.
well, I can't have them here and I can't have them there. I just got to go do my own thing. And then we hang out. What I can say is this: if it's not intentional, it probably won't happen. So, I mean, one day I literally leaned over to start tying my shoes on the stairs, and I was holding my breath. And I've never been a real big guy, but it was like visceral fat and a little bit of extra chub on the front, just kind of squishing all my organs up. And I thought to myself, this is insane. Like I've got to do something. So that kind of started me down the path, and I just started to figure out, how do I put this in. It's to the point now where it's so good for my mental health that I'll have days, it's not been a lot less recently, but I'll have days if I don't go in the morning that my wife is like, you need to go to the gym because you're kind of being a jerk, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time with guys who are like, I can't get to the gym because I wake up at 4 a.m. to do just
Mhm.
that. And for me, I feel like guys will either let our family suffer, or will let work suffer, or we suffer in some way, shape, or form. And there may be others there, but those are kind of the three I think about. And the last thing I wanted to do was not take care of my family, and then also make my family suffer for not being around. And so I just figured, well, the best way to do that is I'll take Arnold Schwarzenegger's advice and sleep faster. And that's really what it came down to, is like, okay, I can function. I actually find that I function best on about 6 hours anyways.
Mm.
So the whole concept of 8 hours to me is not, I've never understood that. And I noticed that if I'm on every hour and a half, that I usually feel better when I wake up on those points. So four and a
Mm.
half, six,
Yeah.
but six is pretty optimal. I don't feel tired like in the middle of the day if it's like that. And so go to bed at night, wake up, have my alarm set. um, these are names you probably have heard as well, but Bedros Keuilian is like, don't ever hit snooze. So I
Hmm.
try not to do that. I'm not great at that, but I try to set my alarm for 4 a.m. ish, and then head out to the gym, do my own workout, and then I'll either do the class workout or I coach that class. If I coach that class, then I'll actually do the class workout after class. And then through this summer recently, I've actually stayed on and coached the 7:30 class as well. So we have a 5:15 open gym at 6:30 when I'll work out if I coach the 5:15, and then I've been staying on and doing the 7:30 class as well. So get a good session in beforehand and then in the middle of those two. And
Mm.
then I come home and kind of have some coffee with the wifey, and try to see the kids for a little bit, especially in the summer right now. And then I walk into the front room here and start working.
Yes, work from home. Nice. Yeah. So how long has the coaching thing been a side hustle for you? Have you been a CrossFit coach a long time, or you just grew to love that environment and
Well,
picked
I,
up?
I fell in love with the environment. I was a
Yeah.
fighter ahead of time. I was a fighter
Okay.
before, and
Right.
one thing I really liked, one of the biggest things for me was I saw the CrossFit Games, and I kept asking my same question I asked when I started fighting was, can I do that? I wonder if I could do
Mhm.
that. And I found that the games athletes are way more advanced than I ever understood. So
Yeah.
no is the answer to that. But I can handle my own kind of in the gym. But um, I liked the workouts because even as a fighter, you weren't trying to get like big. I wasn't trying to grow muscle. I
Mhm.
needed to be stronger, but I needed to not gain like weight. And so what I like about CrossFit is that you can actually do it in a way where you get stronger, but you don't have to gain size. Um, and so I never really wanted to be like bulky or whatnot. And so that kind of worked out that way for sure.
Yes.
But it kind of came along as I fell in love with the sport. And then we went through some changes in my gym specifically where I just said I would go and get my level 1 and start helping out. And that's kind of been the way it's been since then.
Nice. So you
Yeah.
you appreciate Arnold's views on sleep and not so much his training methodology, bodybuilding. I
Yeah,
like it.
well, apparently everybody was juicing back then, and
Oh,
possibly
sure, yeah.
still is, but yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not in my repertoire. So, yeah, I appreciate you got to take what works for you and leave what doesn't, and some of
Absolutely.
those things.
Yeah, you
I'm
can be
all
a
for
fit
that
dad.
kind of style, but
Yeah, you can be a fit dad without steroids. I think it actually is probably
right,
counterproductive at a certain point for sure.
the truth,
Nice.
the truth.
So some resonated with what you had said, maybe on one of the podcasts. I can't remember exactly, but the dad model was be a provider and rarely be home back in the day, right? Maybe it's
Hmm.
our grandparents now at this point where that was
Yeah,
kind of so entrenched. But now it's more provider still, but caregiver, confidant, maybe playful type dad too. So how do you merge
yeah,
those three or four into one
sure.
super dad model like you've done?
Well, I don't know if I've made it there by any means, but I think that what we've got to do is just take the advantage of the times that we have. You can schedule it out, and I mean, I've heard guys that do that. I think that works as well. But time blocking, time chunking, where you just this is when I work, and when I work, I work, and when I play, I play. That said, I have a standing desk, and my daughter, she's not there now, but she will be underneath the desk. There's a whiteboard down there. She's kind of gravitated to the wall, so I've got whiteboard marker and marker on the wall as well.
Jeez.
So the kids will come in and show me stuff that they've done or whatever. So there's small little tidbits. I do tidbits that I like that about working from home, because you can still interact. When it's lunchtime.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're actually at a job, you either eat somewhere at the job or you go out to eat. Here, I can walk out and make lunch and be around the family, and I really do enjoy
Mm.
that. And then when it's time to shut it down, shut your brain off and from like the work side of your brain, and sit down with the family. We literally we're old school traditional where we sit down at the table pretty much every night to eat, and that's extremely important. I mean, we'll do the kids have a game called Guess in 10, which is basically like I'm an animal and you have to like we guess, we ask questions, and then like it's just fun stuff like that. I've had plenty of times where I've just sat there like quietly watching all of them interacting and having fun and laughing and being crazy. Um, and so that's all part of how that works for us. And then, I have older kids. I have a 19 and a 16-year-old, and then I have a pretty big gap, and then I have almost 8, 7, and almost 3. And so, then we have the bath and bedtime routine that we do with them as well.
Mhm.
Summertime, that kind of gets skewed, in my opinion. I'm okay with them staying up a little bit later. I used to be militant, like the 8 o'clock. If they weren't in bed, I started to like the rage started to rise, where I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, get in bed," that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But summertime, I don't have that much anymore. I'm pretty relaxed, but
Nice.
summertime, it's a lot more lax. They may do a dance party after like while mom and I are cleaning up. They may do a dance party in the living room and play around, and then we'll like, all right, last song, and everybody go brush teeth, and then we work our way
Mhm.
upstairs. Um,
Nice.
so we try to do that as much as we can. That's pretty normal. And I don't know about you, but the older I get, the less I want to be out doing things like just. I don't mean like hanging out with people. I love my group of friends, but I like my routine all the way through the day. I like that I get up at the time I do, but in order to do that, I got to go to bed at some certain time that makes sense. And so, like, I like our bedtime routine with our kids and the nighttime routine. So I have a hard time stepping out of that, even on Fridays and Saturday or Friday nights and Saturday nights. I like the consistency of it because it lets me be who I'm supposed to be and actually not feel like I'm like totally tired all the time. And then when it's time to shut it down, shut your brain off and from like the work side of your brain, and sit down with the family. We literally we're old school traditional where we sit down at the table pretty much every night to eat, and that's extremely important. I mean, we'll do the kids have a game called Guess in 10, which is basically like I'm an animal and you have to like we guess, we ask questions, and then like it's just fun stuff like that. I've had plenty of times where I've just sat there like quietly watching all of them interacting and having fun and laughing and being crazy. And so that's all part of how that works for us. And then, I have older kids. I have a 19 and a 16-year-old, and then I have a pretty big gap, and then I have almost 8, 7, and almost 3. And so, then we have the bath and bedtime routine that we do with them as well. Summertime, that kind of gets skewed, in my opinion. I'm okay with them staying up a little bit later. I used to be militant, like the 8 o'clock, if they weren't in bed, I started to like the rage started to rise where I'd be like, oh my gosh, get in bed, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But summertime, I don't have that much anymore. I'm pretty relaxed, but summertime, it's a lot more lax. They may do a dance party after like while mom and I are cleaning up, they may do a dance party in the living room and play around, and then we'll like, all right, last song, and everybody go brush teeth, and then we work our way upstairs.
Nice.
So we try to do that as much as we can. That's pretty normal. And I don't know about you, but the older I get, the less I want to be out doing things like just, I don't mean like hanging out with people. I love my group of friends, but I like my routine all the way through the day. I like that I get up at the time I do, but in order to do that, I got to go to bed at some certain time that makes sense. And so like, I like our bedtime routine with our kids and the nighttime routine. So I have a hard time stepping out of that, even on Fridays and Saturday, or Friday nights and Saturday nights. I just like the consistency of it because it lets me be who I'm supposed to be and actually not feel like I'm like totally tired all the time. You kind of cut out. Are you still there? I've had this happen a time or two. Mitch, you're frozen. Oh.
Hey
There
Nate,
you
not
are.
sure what
Hey,
happened there. I just like completely blanked
yeah,
out.
all
Internet
good.
on my end, I guess. That's
Yeah,
all. We'll just pick up where we were, and it should be fine. I'll just make sure I
yeah,
reset this. So yeah, you were kind of picking up on the nighttime routine. I kind of want to tie that into the whole message of your Instagram page, Dads Don't
sure.
Babysit, and maybe speak to what that signifies for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like we go through the bedtime routine, and for me, I actually like that routine for myself. I don't like. I sound crazy, but the older I get, the less I want to go out and do things, and I don't mind being with people, and I love my group of friends, that kind of thing. But it's I don't know. I just want the normalcy of of our routine to the level that if I don't have that routine, normally I'm going to wake up with like a headache or I'm hungry or some weirdness that I'm going to deal with because I didn't do my normal routine. Um, but yeah, that really comes into play with when it comes per your question, how does that come into play with the Dads Don't Babysit? That actually comes from a friend of mine and I were on the phone. I forget what all we were doing, but he said, hey, if you hear the little one in the background, I'm babysitting right now. And it was a new dad. I mean, this was his first kid, and I want to say the kid was maybe like 3 weeks old. And I was just like, dude, first thing we got to get out of the way is that you are not babysitting. You are a father, and so you are being a dad. It's totally different. Because that, for me, it's not insulting, but it's like I don't babysit my own kids. I babysit somebody else's kids because I don't have really any responsibility to those. Like, keep them alive, throw some chicken nuggets at them, and then send them home. Right? My kids, it's not like that. My kids, they need so much from me. I just think about all of the things that, when you take a father out of the home, all of the statistics that show up in
Mhm.
children's lives that are crazy. Like, I mean, there are so many stats to show how important a father is, that's not a babysitting position, right? That's a that's a full-on parent role, and it's not a secondary parent role either. That's a full-on primary parent role, because we influence their lives so much that the things I do and the things I say set the trajectory for their life. That is a weight that's an immense weight, but one I want to carry, right? And I think for dads, it's one that most want to carry. Don't I For me, it's like, don't relegate us back to babysitters, because it's not even in the same universe as to what we do. And so, when it comes to bedtime routine, how they like breakfast, anything that I'm a part of, I'm crazy. I think I said this before, but I can count. Okay, that's okay. We had this for breakfast. I don't go like, oh, that's 6 grams of sugar. So how many grams of sugar have they had? But I will run through and go, okay, well, you know, we had a fun breakfast. We had pancakes or waffles or something. Well, there's syrup there, so we don't need to do craziness in the afternoon and in the evening. We need to pay attention to what we're eating here. That's As a dad, that's my role. And again, I feel like fathers, our voice to our littles becomes that internal voice when they're older. So that's a heavy responsibility. And again, one that I want to carry, and one that I'm happy to do so.
Mhm. Yeah, you touched on some good things, but well, statistics being one, but even being an overweight dad,
Mm,
3.5 times more likely to have overweight kids. They kind of model
yeah.
what we do. Don't always listen to what
Yeah.
we say, but they certainly model our actions, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
leading by
I almost
example is
feel
one part.
I I almost feel like you could almost take a vow of silence as a father for a year if you just did the right things.
Yeah.
Like, your kids would follow suit. It's not, you're so right, man. They don't really, they're their own person. They're not
Yeah.
really going to do what you say, but they soak up everything. So they are going
So
to absolutely do what you do.
excellent.
Yeah.
So how do you become this more present parent without becoming, the helicopter parent that does everything
Mm,
for your kids? There's something you said in one of your videos that, don't do for your kids what they can do for themselves. And that really
yeah.
resonated for me, like, oh, I'm getting them snacks when they could get them themselves.
Yeah.
So how do you balance those two pieces, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Actually, to me, it's more so, and it can't come from a point of like, I don't want to do that for them. It can't come from a selfish position. It's really, hey, you can do that. It's an empowering position, right? So when
Mhm.
my kids are tall enough to try and hop up on the counter, I can't lower the counters down to their level.
Yeah.
I've actually seen, or Montessori schools will say, like, you should have a place for your kids to be able to get cups so that they can get water for themselves, or things like that. So if I don't have that in our house, but they can climb up on the counters, and that used to drive me nuts. But one day I was like, wait a second. Yeah, go do that. That's fine. Because if I got to get something in a certain cabinet over our fridge, I'll hop up on the counter to reach around and get
Mhm.
that. I'm a short dude, so
Yeah.
I can't reach it around. Like, I can't reach over the fridge for that. So I let them. If they're getting on the counters, go ahead, grab a cup, get your sister a cup. When the boys brush their teeth, when we're like, hey, go brush your teeth, I'm like, get your sister's toothpaste for her, like, help her do that. She's little, so she can't do that very easily yet. Um,
Mhm.
it's really just empowering them more than anything else. And so, I don't know. That one actually came from watching my oldest. I didn't do that in the for the older one. I was more that way, but unfortunately, like,
Mhm.
my ex-wife, his mom kind of does a lot more for him, and so he lets her. And uh and so watching that, I was like, yeah, that's the problem, is that we're going to take the easier road usually, unless we make decisions to take the harder road. So if I can be that father who goes, you can do that, try it, and be right there, let them try, then they
Mhm.
get the win, right? Then when they get up and they get a cup and they get their own water, they're like, look what I just did, that kind of thing. The older they get, the more you let them do it. I think the scariest one is probably when you let them drive, right? I mean, seriously, you're
Yeah.
sitting in the passenger seat, you can do nothing, you know? And I'm there right now with my I was there with my oldest, but I'm there with my 16-year-old daughter. And you're in the passenger seat, you know, you're stomping on your fake brake and you're holding on to the
Yeah.
all those things. And I try to be chill, but sometimes you're
Yeah.
going, oh, we are gonna die.
Yeah.
Just, and so you're empowering your kids all the way through so that when they get to driving, it's just one more thing you're empowering them to do. It's just normal for them to do things on their own. Um, yeah, it's not and I did get some I got some responses where people are like, well, what if their love language is, acts of service? And I'm
Mhm.
going, there's okay, but yeah, sure, do things for them. But this is more of a let me empower you to do things for yourself. I'm going to do things for you because I love you. This is you can do it because you're a great human being and you can do it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's something to be said for that of the when they take ownership of it, they just feel more content. I noticed that with our 5-year-old
Hmm.
who initially wanted everything done for her, but now we let her
Hmm.
kind of figure it out. Even if it's the shoes on the wrong foot, she kind of,
Hmm.
gets them on the right feet, and she seems empowered and she celebrates and wants to share
Oh
her
yeah.
win. So there's something
Yeah.
to that for sure. It's a great way to
Yeah.
put it.
And our
Uh,
3-year-old like somewhat dresses herself, like she picks her own clothes. You know, my mother, my mother I mean, I wore suits to church in the like on Sundays. That's like how my life was, and so she kind of picked out the clothes and did all that stuff. She would never let her kids leave the house looking disheveled or almost like they were dressing like a clown, something like that. But for me, that's not such a big deal, and so that's one of those battles where with a 3-year-old, you can either fight with her to wear the outfit that matches or let her pick it out and not have a fight either. So you empower her to pick out her own clothes and you get to skip a battle that really isn't necessary. And honestly, what's the worst that could happen? Somebody looks at you and says, wow, you don't care about how you dress your kids. I mean,
mm,
honestly, at that point, no. And I don't care what you think because I don't even know who you are.
100%. Any parent that has a kid would understand that, okay, the kid made that choice and there
Yeah,
wasn't
I
a
would
fight.
hope so.
Yeah, so it makes sense. Yeah, we would get it. Nice. I love it. So
Yeah.
how do you bring in the fun? You mentioned something about a crumble run. I don't think we have crumble in Canada, so I'm
Mm,
not sure what that
yeah.
relates to, but maybe dive into that concept a bit because I found that really cool too.
Yeah, actually, that came from a pastor I used to listen to named Matt Chandler. He talked about donut runs, and it's just something that I took that and thought, oh, what a great idea. I mean, you just like that for us is you just run in. I mean, I don't let them fall all the way asleep. You know what I mean? You go in so that they're still awake, and you yell crumble run or donut run or whatever you want to make up, and just go do something like that. It's just something that throws off the norm, and you have a good time. I mean, we wrestle and we play like that. I mean, I will say I wanted to I want to be able to make it so that my kids, when they play with me, that they're tired when it's all said and done, right? Like, Dad, can we stop? That's when I win. I win right there, right? Um, but anything can, for us, it's anytime can be fun, anything. But that kind of stuff is more of, I want to instill that, like the older ones got donut runs because that's how we started. And where I
Mm.
used to live, Tim Hortons is from Canada, right?
It is actually, yeah.
Okay,
It's unique
so
up
we
here.
had a Tim Hortons right around the corner from my old house in Ohio,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
that's where we would go because they were open all night at that point. So it didn't matter when we went. Um, I at least knew that we could go do that, and so that's what started it with that part of it. But I
Neat.
mean, I don't know, anything you can do to have fun like that. It's small, it's
Yeah.
easy.
Out of the norm, out of the routine, they kind of get a thrill out of it. So I
Yeah.
love it. I'm gonna start
And the
trying
older
to.
ones still talk about it. That's the beautiful
Yeah.
part is they're like they've said stuff like, "How come we don't ever go on donut runs anymore?" And I heard them say that, and I thought that really resonated with them, and I thought, "Wow, well, there's no donut places around here that stay open late enough." And then remembered that Crumble's like 5 minutes down the road, and they're open till 10. I'm surely not going in at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So put them to bed at like 8:30, and then just turn around and wake up, like get them right back out.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a cool concept. I'm gonna take that and run with it.
yeah, do it. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
not mine. Like I said, stole it from
Yeah.
Matt Chandler.
Well, hey, yeah, the best artists steal, right? Isn't that the
Right.
saying?
That's right.
So, talk a bit about not letting your. This is actually from the podcast with Adrian, where you spoke about not letting your kids win, which is a concept parents have trouble with nowadays. They want to kind of You can handle them with kid gloves and make sure
Yeah.
they win in every aspect of life. But you're not so much that same kind of parent. So I kind of like what you're saying. Share that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, one, my kids, my sons are really competitive, so they hate to lose, which I like that. I want that for them. I'm the same
Yeah.
way. I mean, they get it honest. I think that earning it, it goes back to that empowering them. Earning it is something that they feel like. I think I may have been talking about chess with Finley. When he beats me, he'll know he beat me. I'm not going to let him win. But I mean, he's taking pieces. I wasn't paying attention. And
Yeah.
the dude wants to play when I'm cooking dinner or something like that. So
Yeah.
I'll be like looking there and then going back and cooking something and, that kind of thing, or I'm grilling, whatever it is. So he can catch me not looking at some point. But he already knows that if he beats me, it's not because I let him win. And I think that there's an empowering, there's something about their soul that feels better about who they are when they earn it. And so for me, it's really I mean, I don't make, so Finley and Wyatt are real close in age. I don't make Finn let Wyatt win. Even when Wyatt is really frustrated. I
Nice.
tell them, and I'm learning this myself, but the more we lose, that's when we learn. So I just keep saying, Wyatt, someday you're gonna be able to take him and stuff, or you can do things he can't do. This might not be that one, but don't quit because you're losing. Understand that, we all lose. Everybody's gonna lose at some point, and losing actually teaches us more. And so, but when you win, you earned it, because no one in our house is just gonna be like, oh yeah, I let him win. Not, I will say with the 3-year-old, it's a little less. If she like pins me to the floor, I'm gonna be like, oh no. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
she's
yeah.
3. The older she gets, the more I'll be like, yeah, you can't pin me, and I'll make her work for it.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of life in a nutshell, right? You got to learn those lessons early because in adulthood, you're going to get beat up and face failure and have to bounce back and build resiliency and all
Yeah,
those things. So
yeah, yeah,
why not start them
yeah.
young? You know?
Yeah, in a world where everybody gets a trophy for everything, and I
Yeah.
hate that. I mean, I know I'm a Gen Xer where we did not get that. It was,
Mhm.
you had first, second, and third place, and everybody else went home wishing they got a trophy. That's kind of how it
Yeah.
worked. And I live that. I live that in our house, and I mean, I've coached stuff where I coached my oldest when he was in second grade, and there were no goalkeepers in soccer, and I played soccer all the way into college, and I'm like, what are we doing? And there
What's
was
the
one
point?
game. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was one game where we were losing like 17-2, and I'm frustrated, they're frustrated, and one of the kids
Mhm.
goes, "Well, we don't really keep score anyways." And I said, "What's the score?" And he's like, "Well, they've got 15." And I said, "See, we do keep score." I'm
Yeah.
like, even when we're not keeping score, the kids are keeping
Mhm.
score. So we're teaching them that we're teaching them wrong when we do that. There's a winner and there's losers, and the losers got to work harder to beat the winner. You can't always just because you're the champ now doesn't mean you're going to be the champ tomorrow or the next fight or the next game. All those things are good for development and
For
just
sure.
self-confidence.
It's the only way you get better. Yeah. If you've learned a lesson from it and you're now motivated to be better, to compete,
Right?
so on. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems like a natural human thing to want to
Yeah.
instill in our kids for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and we're in the fitness world too, so you push your muscles to failure. I mean, when I do heavy squats, like today, I was doing today was heavy squats, and my last set is an AMRAP. So we do a bunch of reps in different sets,
Hmm.
and then the last set is until failure. Well, that means I go until I can't stand up,
Hmm.
and that makes me that makes me stronger. It makes me better. But the last rep, the weight always hits the floor.
Yeah.
I always miss the last rep because I go until I can't go. But that's what makes my muscles stronger. So why wouldn't I put that into life?
Huge, and that's a great analogy. Progressive overload, right? You've got
Hmm.
to force it to adapt. Diamond without pressure is a lump of coal, I believe is the quote. And depending on
Right.
the awesome. It's kind of a grim question. I always like to ask though, is like, what would you want your kids to say about you if you were gone tomorrow? Like, what is
Mm.
that big message you're trying to instill in them about you as a father?
It's funny you say that. I was working on a reel today that I'll put out a little bit later that is a blessing for fathers. It's kind of one of those like Irish blessings. But there's one of them where I basically say, may your children, when they're told that they're just like you, say or think to themselves, I could only hope. And then I can say, no, they're better than me. And so my hope is that my kids would say something to the effect of, he always wanted to be the best possible human he could be, and he taught me to do the same. Um, because there's so much growth and so much potential in the human animal that I love that about all of us. And I want to see that in me, and I want to see that in my kids. And if they can take that from me, that would be huge for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're just like your father. It has a negative connotation sometimes when it's used.
Mm,
We don't want that, right? We want,
no.
oh, that's a compliment. He lived
Yeah.
to live. And then adding on a layer that they've evolved even past where you left them. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff, Nate. So let's kind of wrap this up. Like what are you
Yeah.
working on these days? I know you got a great Instagram following, you got a day job and
Sure.
CrossFit coaching. What's
Yeah.
kind of on your plate as the big projects moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm working on a couple things. I'm working on a membership site where the people can get actual like more connection to me with longer form conversation.
Oh,
They'll
okay.
actually get better connection with me as well, in the sense of like some live Q&As. We can do that a little bit more often. So I'm working on that at the moment, hoping to push that out here in late August or September. And that may be too far out, so I'm trying to work through all those things.
Yeah.
And then also working on a book specifically. That one, title's weird, but more so understanding that um, we are the example. Talking about how we are the example, kind of what I said before. Where could I be mute and still teach my children exactly what they need to do for life? So that's the concept there. So those are the two things, the two majors that are coming out.
Oh, perfect. Book is it's a monster project. I mean, especially with your schedule, do you have any sort of system to move it forward each day, or is it more
Sure.
realistic kind of when you get to it kind of thing?
Yeah, actually, I was talking with Ryan Mickler on Order of Man about that, and he's like, I just 1,000 words a day, and I thought about that, and I was like, I sat down after that conversation. I sat down and I said, I wonder what 1,000 words, like what that would take, and that's a lot. I mean, that's baller status that he did that. One of my friends is actually kind of like a book writing coach, and then what he suggested, I was doing 75 hard when he and I were talking, and he's like, why don't you take your second workout where you're walking and doing that, and he said, just like talk to text kind of your book.
Mm.
And so I've been trying to do a little bit of that, as well as on the weekends I do a full, like, I know there's some guys that are like no days off, but I am not one of those. I find that I'm pretty good to go in 5 days a week. So on Saturday and Sunday, try to get up before everybody still, and spend more time sitting and really thinking through and working on the book at that point. So that's a slow go, in my opinion. You're right, it's an
Mm.
undertaking, but one that I'm excited about for sure.
Yeah, books live on forever, right? You want to make sure you do it right. Do it
Yeah.
right, and it takes a little longer than it does, so be it. So where can they find you on Instagram? I know it's is there an underscore in there? Dads
Yeah.
don't babysit? Okay.
Yeah, it's dads underscore don't underscore babysit. That's where they can
Excellent.
find me. That's actually the best place to find me at the moment. And then as my site comes out, they'll I mean, I'll put that out. I've been trying to do the Dads Don't Babysit, so it may just be my name, but that's
Okay.
where, as it comes out, that's what they'll be able to find me there.
Perfect. Awesome, Nate. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man, it was great talking with you.
We'll talk again soon on the
All right, sounds
interwebs.
good.
Cheers.
All right.